Please like and comment on the video below. That will allow me to produce better quality videos and more of them in the future. So here is a tennis trading tip for you. Tennis tournaments, especially Grand Slams, not all of them, but definitely the Grand Slams, are seeded. So you have the first round with 128 players in it, and the first seed will be on the left-hand side of the draw, and the number 2 seed will be on the right-hand side of the draw. So in the first round, there's no chance of them meeting. In the next round, obviously you can't have 128 players because half of them have been knocked out. You get the round of 64, and then 32, 16, 8, 4, and then 2 is the final. So the reason the tournaments are seeded is so that hopefully seeds 1 and 2 meet in the final, or definitely in the later stages. And that's the way that tennis tournaments are run. They're designed like that for a number of reasons, but obviously, you know, if you're going to charge people $4 grand, $5 grand to get a seat at the final, you want the best final possible, and the way to do that is to seed them so that players meet at the final, or certainly the top players end up clustered in that little group at the very top. Now, the consequence of that is when you look at the very early rounds in Grand Slams, you end up with Novak Djokovic maybe meeting a qualifier, and the difference in skill level is absolutely vast. So you may find that a Djokovic or a Murray or one of the higher seeded players ends up meeting a much lower seeded player, or maybe even a qualifier in the early rounds of the tournament. And therefore when the market goes up, you'll find that sort of Murray is 102, 103, 105, or sometimes you get 101 to win that particular match. And the interesting thing about this is that when you look at the dynamics of exactly how the match could play out, you wouldn't expect a person trading at very low, it's 105 or lower, to lose. It does happen. It's happened a lot already in the French Open. It will happen at Wimbledon. And the way that the matches tend to be played out is the lower graded player, the lower ranked player that's miles off the skill level of the seeded player, will generally go for it in the first set. They'll try a few shots, they'll really try and put the pressure on, and they'll see if they can attempt to get a break or do something interesting in that first set. Now, a lot of the times it just vanishes and, you know, nothing happens. But when you look at the stats overall, generally the odds are about right. You know, somebody trading at 105 will win in a rate equivalent to the odds that they go off of. So where's the value? Where's the trading strategy within that? Well, the thing about tennis, and a lot of sports incidentally, is that if the price starts over here and you look at the long-term chance of them winning and it's over here, in other words they're pretty much level, you may wonder where the value is. But when you're trading, you're not interested in that. You couldn't care less whether that's the case. What you're trading is the uncertainty of, you know, the price starting here and ending here. So it starts at 105 and ends at 101. Now, if you back it at 105 and trade out at 101, you'll make a small amount. But generally, that's not where the opportunity is. If you look at tennis, what tends to happen is that qualifier, that lower ranked player, will try and put pressure on the serve of his opponent, and his opponent may just be thinking, well, you know, I'll play this game out, don't want to do anything strenuous, blah, 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 has his mind on the quarterfinals and so on. So they won't really go for it. So the lower ranked player will always put a bit of pressure on us. So when you look at the graph, very often it doesn't go from 105 to 101 like that, or straight away. You may actually find it meanders a bit before it comes back down and finishes at the level at what you look at. And you trade that meandering. So early rounds tennis, with very short priced favourites, that's generally what I'm looking for. I'm setting myself up to be able to profit if there's any deviation on that curve when it goes up and then, you know, eventually comes back in the other direction. Now, every now and again, you lay somebody at 102, 103, 101, 105, and they go on and lose. It's happened already at the French Open. It happens with an amazingly regular occurrence, much more frequently than you imagine it would do. But of course, there are loads of matches, so, you know, that's going to happen. But even when you get a match which is won comfortably 3 sets to love or 2 sets to love in the women's, you may find that initially the price drifts a little bit, and it's that you're trying to catch, that little bit of a drift. The slow starter, the person that is higher ranked but tends to take it easy in the earlier rounds. You can see these patterns developing all the time. Andy Murray is a classic. We've already seen it already this week. We've seen it twice, and I've just seen it again, where the odds start very low, but they drift a bit, and then he eventually gets himself into gear and goes on to win the match. And every now and again, there was a classic a few years ago, I think it was Murray v Potito Starace, where he almost lost it and then he eventually turned it around and came back to it. I'll see if I can dig out the graph for you and fly it up on the screen. But in the early rounds of tennis, you're going to get really, really short odds. There's really not much point in backing it because there's a lot of risk in that. But if you lay it and you're watching the match, or you identify a slow starter, or all of those variables, basically you'll often find matches where the price starts to drift and then it eventually comes back down when they close out the game. And it doesn't even need to be that they've lost that first set. It just needs to be that they've been put under pressure at some point, or maybe they did get a break down, or maybe they got a couple of breaks down, or maybe they just fluffed their first service game or something like that. If you want to identify matches and where those key points are, then fire up Tennis Trader, and what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to identify exactly how those odds are going to move and when they're going to move according to the scoreline, so you can out anticipate what's likely to happen. But yeah, early round tournaments, uncompetitive matches, generally that's what I'd recommend. That's what I do. I'm laying at very, very low odds. If the player goes on to absolutely demolish the other player, there's not much you can do about that. But in a lot of matches, many, many more than you would imagine, the price will start to drift before eventually coming back, and the player closes out the entire match. And every now and again, you get an unexpected bonus. And that's what I'd recommend you do in early rounds of tennis tournaments.